Crying as if his heart would break, the marionette mourned for hours over the length of his nose. No matter how he tried, it would not go through the door. The fairy showed no pity toward him, as she was trying to teach him a good lesson, so that he would stop telling lies, the worst habit any boy may acquire. But when she saw him, pale with fright, and with his eyes half out of his head from terror, she began to feel sorry for him, and clapped her hands together. 1,000 woodpeckers flew in through the window and settled themselves on Pinocchio's nose. They pecked and pecked so hard at that enormous nose that in a few moments it was the same size as before.
How good you are, my fairy, and how much I love you.
I love you too. And if you wish to stay with me, you may be my little brother, and I'll be your good little sister.
I should like to stay, but what about my poor father?
I have thought of everything. Your father has been sent for, and before night he will be here.
Really? Then, my good fairy, if you are willing, I should like to go to meet him. I cannot wait to kiss that dear old man who has suffered so much for my sake.
Surely, go ahead. But be careful not to lose your way. Take the wood path, and you'll surely meet him.
Pinocchio set out, and as soon as he found himself in the wood, he ran like a hare. When he reached the giant oak tree, he stopped, for he thought he heard a rustle in the brush. He was right. There stood the fox and the cat, the two traveling companions with whom he had eaten at the Inn of the Red Lobster.
Oh, here comes our dear Pinocchio. Let me hug and kiss you. How did you happen here?
It is a long story. Let me tell it to you. The other night, when you left me alone at the inn, I met the assassins on the road.
The assassins? Oh, my poor friend. And what could they have possibly wanted?
They wanted my gold pieces.
Those rascals.
The worst sorts of rascals.
I began to run, and then they came after me until they overtook me and hanged me to the limb of that oak over there.
Could anything be worse? What an awful world to live in. Where, oh, where shall we find a safe place for gentlemen like ourselves?
As the fox talked thus, Pinocchio noticed that the cat carried his right paw in a sling.
What happened to your paw?
It's, I just, yeah, you know.
Oh, my friend is too modest to answer. I shall answer for him. You see, about an hour ago, we met an old wolf on the road. He was half-starved and begged for our help. Having nothing to give him, what do you think my friend did out of the kindness of his heart? With his teeth, he bit off the paw of his front foot and threw it at that poor beast so that he might have something to eat. Oh, what goodliness!
As he spoke, the fox wiped off a tear. Pinocchio, almost in tears himself, whispered in the cat's ear,
If all the cats were like you, how lucky the mice would be.
And what, pray tell, are you doing here?
I'm waiting for my father, who will be here at any moment now.
And your gold pieces?
I still have them in my pocket, except one, which I spent at the Inn of the Red Lobster.
Oh, and to think that those 4 gold pieces might become 2,000 tomorrow. Why don't you listen to me? Why don't you sow them in the field? The field of wonders, yes.
Today it is impossible. I'll go with you some other time.
But another day will be too late.
Why?
Because that field has been bought by a very rich man, and today is the last day that it will be open to the public.
How far is this field of wonders?
Oh, only 2 miles away. Will you come with us? We'll be there in half an hour. You can sow the money, and after just a few minutes, you will gather your 2,000 coins and return home rich. Are you coming?
Pinocchio hesitated a moment before answering, for he remembered the good fairy, old Geppetto, and the advice of the talking cricket. Then he ended by doing what all boys do when they have no heart and little brain. He shrugged his shoulders and said to the fox and the cat,
Let us go. I am with you.
And they went. They walked and walked for half a day at least, and at last they came to the town called the City of Simple Simons. As soon as they entered the town, Pinocchio noticed that all the streets were filled with hairless dogs, yawning from hunger, with sheared sheep trembling with cold, with combless chickens begging for grains of wheat, with large butterflies unable to use their wings because they had sold all their lovely colors, with tailless peacocks ashamed to show themselves, and with bedraggled pheasants scuttling away hurriedly, grieving for their bright feathers of gold and silver lost to them forever. Through this crowd of paupers and beggars, a beautiful coach passed now and again. Within it sat either a fox, a hawk, or a vulture.
Where is the Field of Wonders?
Patience, my dear friend. It is only a few more steps away.
They passed through the city, and just outside the walls, they stepped into a lonely field which looked more or less like any other field.
Ah, here we are. Now, dig a hole here and put the gold pieces into it.
The marionette obeyed. He dug the hole, put the 4 gold pieces into it, and covered them up very carefully.
Now, go to that nearby brook. Bring back a pail full of water and sprinkle it over the spot.
Pinocchio followed the directions closely, but as he had no pail, he pulled off his shoe, filled it with water, and sprinkled the earth which covered the gold. Then he asked,
Anything else?
No, nothing else. Now, we can go. Return here within 20 minutes, and you will find the vine grown and the branches filled with gold pieces.
Pinocchio, beside himself with joy, thanked the fox and the cat many times and promised them each a beautiful gift.
We don't want any of your gifts.
It is enough for us that we have helped you become rich with little or no trouble.
For this, we are as happy as kings.
They said goodbye to Pinocchio, and, wishing him luck, went on their way. If the marionette had been told to wait a day instead of 20 minutes, the time could not have seemed longer to him. He walked impatiently to and fro, and finally turned his nose toward the Field of Wonders. And as he walked with hurried steps, his heart beat with an excited tick-tack, 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 just as if it were a wall clock, and his busy brain kept thinking,
What if instead of 1,000, I should find 2,000? Or instead of 2,000, I should find 5,000? Or 100,000? I'll build myself a beautiful palace with 1,000 stables filled with 1,000 wooden horses to play with. A cellar overflowing with lemonade and ice cream soda, and a library of candies and fruits, cakes and cookies.
Thus amusing himself with fancies, he came to the field. There he stopped to see if by any chance a vine filled with gold coins was in sight. But he saw nothing. He took a few steps forward, and still nothing. He stepped into the field. He went up to the place where he had dug the hole and buried the gold pieces. Again, nothing. Pinocchio became very thoughtful, and forgetting his good manners altogether, he pulled a hand out of his pocket and gave his head a thorough scratching. As he did so, he heard a hearty burst of laughter close to his head. He turned sharply, and there, just above him on the branch of a tree, sat a large parrot, busily preening his feathers.
What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing because in preening my feathers, I tickled myself under the wings.
The marionette did not answer. He walked to the brook, filled his shoe with water, and once more sprinkled the ground which covered the gold pieces. Another burst of laughter, even more impertinent than the first, was heard in the quiet field.
Well, may I know, Mr. Parrot, what amuses you so?
I am laughing at those simpletons who believe everything they hear and who allow themselves to be caught so easily in the trap set for them.
Do you perhaps mean me?
I certainly do mean you, poor Pinocchio. You who are such a little silly as to believe that gold can be sown in a field, just like beans or squash. I too believed that once, and today I'm very sorry for it. Today, but too late. I've reached the conclusion that in order to come by money honestly, one must work and know how to earn it, with hand or brain.
I don't know what you are talking about.
The marionette was beginning to tremble with fear.
Too bad. I'll explain myself better. While you were away in the city, the fox and cat returned here in a great hurry. They took the 4 gold pieces which you have buried and ran away as fast as the wind. If you catch them, you're a brave one.
Pinocchio's mouth opened wide. He would not believe the parrot's words and began to dig away furiously at the earth. He dug and he dug till the hole was as big as himself, but no money was there. Every penny was gone. In desperation, he ran to the city and went straight to the courthouse to report the robbery to the magistrate. The judge was a monkey, a large gorilla, venerable with age. A flowing white beard covered his chest, and he wore gold-rimmed spectacles from which the glasses had dropped out. The reason for wearing these, he said, was that his eyes had been weakened by the work of many years. Pinocchio, standing before him, told his pitiful tale word by word. He gave the names and the descriptions of the robbers and begged for justice. The judge listened to him with great patience. A kind look shone in his eyes. He became very much interested in the story. He felt moved. He almost wept. When the marionette had no more to say, the judge put out his hand and rang a bell. At the sound, 2 large mastiffs appeared, dressed in carabineers' uniforms. Then the magistrate, pointing to Pinocchio, said in a very solemn voice,
"This poor simpleton has been robbed of 4 gold pieces. Take him, therefore, and throw him into prison."
The marionette, on hearing this sentence passed upon him, was thoroughly stunned. He tried to protest, but the 2 officers clapped their paws on his mouth and hustled him away to jail. There he had to remain for 4 long, weary months, and if it had not been for a very lucky chance, he probably would have had to stay there longer. It happened just then that the young emperor who ruled over the city of Simple Simons had gained a great victory over his enemy, and in celebration thereof he had ordered colored streetlights, fireworks, shows of all kinds, and, best of all, the opening of all prison doors. But none came for Pinocchio. He got the attention of the jailer by banging on his bars.
If the others go, I go too.
Not you. You were one of those.
I beg your pardon. I too am a thief.
The jailer, taking off his cap, bowed low and opened the door of the prison cell.
Oh, in that case, you are also free.
Pinocchio ran out and away with never a look backward.